Hey, what's up, people? Let's take a look at a really old school piece of electronic test equipment today. This is a Heathkit transistor checker, model number IT-3118. And this is a device that I found at a secondhand shop for $20, as you can see written in like crayon or something right there. But you don't have to just take my word for it. I actually left the receipts inside. So there it is right there. You can see $20 on July 11th of 2023. And this thing was sitting out the window, and it caught my attention due to the fact that it's got a large, like, analog movement, and it has, like, a few knobs and some switches. And right there, it's got a little socket. It's got these wires, and it's not. I mean, the case itself seems like it's in pretty decent condition. However, there's something that's got me very concerned. There's something rattling around in there, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. It actually sounds like it's kind of heavy, and I would have thought it was the battery, except it doesn't seem to roll around. I'll show you in the manual here what it's supposed to look like inside. I have not opened it up yet, so I don't know what it's like in there. So we got some crustiness in that area. We got some stuff right in there. It looks like it may have somewhat affected some of this text around this knob and like around that socket and around that knob. But luckily, we know exactly when the battery was last replaced. At least I would think that that's when it was replaced. There's a piece of tape here that says battery new, February of 91. So at this point, it's just over, 33 years that the battery was replaced. So I don't think that battery's all that fresh anymore. Now, it appears that this thing is fairly easy to open up. It just looks like this plate in here is just kind of like captive in there with these little bumps on the plastic. So it looks like I should be able to either like pop it out of the top or pop it out from the bottom. And that should have released the entire assembly, basically. Let me show you what it's supposed to look like inside of this thing. So I found this service manual, or not the service, but the assembly manual, which is actually, it says here for IT-18. But from what I found, there is no specific like assembly manual for this 3118. This is technically like the same exact thing. I don't know why they're numbered differently, and I haven't really found an answer to that. Not that I've searched very hard either. But if we go down to what it looks like inside, on this image, we can see that there's a battery holder kind of in the front of the unit. But like I said, something sounds like it's like sliding around in there, and it doesn't sound round. So I would think that if the battery was like rolling around, because it appears that it's I think it takes like a D size battery. It's either going to be yes, right there it says like 1.5 volt D cell. So I have no idea what it is. I also just realized that the front cover of the movement is kind of popped out right there in that corner. So that could probably be popped back in, but I have a feeling we're going to have to take it off like pretty much completely apart to be able to clean everything properly. And there's, I mean, not a whole lot to say about this thing. It's, like I said, it's just a old transistor tester, an analog transistor tester. So let's try to open it up and see if we can solve the mystery of what's inside of this thing that's moving around. I'm going to try to take this plastic spudger and see if it'll help me bring this plate over this plastic bump. And yeah, that seems to be working. So let's see if I can get this, pull out a little more. Now let's get the other side out. Okay, so that looks like it's going to come out just fine. All right, drum roll, please. What is in here? Okay, maybe spoke a little too soon there. It's still somewhat stuck. I'm having to like kind of shimmy it out of there. And I think I'm going to have to clear like these corners before I can pull it out of the top. So let's bring it down a little more. And I maybe should be wearing gloves for this. There's stuff inside of there. Okay, that looks like it's enough for this side at least. Let's pop that side out, and let's pop this side out. Okay, there we go. What is rolling around or sliding around inside of this thing? Let's see. Oh, gross. So that is the battery rolling around in there. It just didn't quite sound like it was rolling. It just sounded like it was sliding around. Oh, that is nasty. You can see it's left a crystallization and stuff all over the inside of that. But surprisingly, this doesn't look too bad. That terminal right there looks pretty bluish green, as well as these screws. Well, I was expecting that to be in like pretty bad shape, but I mean, none of that looks bad. So that can be all taken apart and cleaned up. And since these were kits, it would have had to have been assembled by somebody, like not in a factory. But it actually looks pretty good in here, in my opinion. So whoever built this did a pretty good job. The terminals on this movement appear to be in pretty good shape, so they look pretty clean. This device is a potentiometer. So, oh wow, that's actually, I didn't realize that it's got these 3 balls right there, and as you turn this, they rotate. So it's like a multi-turn pot. I'll show a close-up of that in a minute, but that's pretty neat. The rest of them, they're multi-position switches, so that's like a 1, 2, 3, like 3-position switch right there. This one is a momentary switch, so it'll either go to the left or to the right, and it has a normal center like position there, so it just kind of goes like that. This one is that's basically a single pole, like double throw, except that it only has like 1 terminal, so I guess it's a single pole, single throw. And this one is a momentary switch, and appears to be a double pole, double throw, but it's momentary on one side. So as you can see, when you push test, it just goes back to cal when you release it. And this cable that sticks out of that grommet, it's still in pretty good shape. It doesn't have like any tears or little cuts or nicks or anything. And these sort of alligator clips that are on the ends, the rubber still feels pretty good, so it's nice and flexible. And I'm gonna have to give everything like a good wipe down. So let's move all this off to the side. I think I'll start by cleaning off all the plastic stuff. That'll be the easiest. Now, thankfully, this label inside is in pretty good shape, other than the fact that it's kind of lifted in some areas. But I'm not going to touch that one. I'll probably just give it a little bit of a wipe down and kind of wipe around it and get rid of some of that residue. I would like to give the stuff in here a wash without getting that wet. I'm going to have to figure out how I can do that. Down that, I can kind of vacuum up. This battery's going to have to get chucked. Oh man, that is nasty. See, what's the best I did on this thing? I don't even see it. It's probably so corroded that it got eaten off at some point, because you can see right there how it's got some of that like silver stuff, and it's just basically like all been eaten away. I'm going to stop touching that now. Try to vacuum up as much as I could from the inside, and the stuff that's still stuck on, I'm going to try to remove by soaking this paper towel with vinegar and hoping that will allow me to remove most of it. Unfortunately, there's like these like empty walls in here or these hollow walls that could possibly like still have stuff in them, but there's like no way for me to be able to like completely see underneath there. I mean, unless I had a little mirror, which I happen to have right here. Oh yeah, there's stuff in there. You can see it right in there. So maybe what I can do, just to try to clean it off as best as I can, is get some maybe cotton swabs, run them around on the inside, or somehow try to bulk one of these up enough to like get it in there. Maybe that'll help. I could also, like I said, because this is like completely enclosed, I could also maybe just dump some vinegar in there and then just kind of like slosh it around, and I'll somehow try to cover up this label so that I don't splash anything on it, because I really do not want to ruin that. This hinge is just basically a piece of like really thin plastic connecting the two, so it's not like I can remove the top from this. So what I could also do is maybe tape something to this side so that I avoid like splashing anything inside. And I think actually that's what I'm going to do, because I really want to protect that. But what I'll do probably first is I'll give this, the inside of this, a wipe down, and then I'll start messing with the rest of this bottom part of the case. All right, so I got the inside of the lid part mostly cleaned up. I gave it as good of a wipe as I could, given the circumstances. So now I am going to cover up this entire area with like some plastic wrap or something. And I've also given the inside a kind of an initial cleaning there. I haven't like gone too deep in there. I just wanted to get like the majority of the easily accessible stuff. So that's definitely looking a lot better. We can still see that in the corners. We still have some gunk in there. But I will protect this first, and then we'll get back to this part. Okay, so before I try to stick anything down on the lip of this cover, I am going to give it a wipe down with some isopropyl alcohol just to remove, yeah, there's still stuff on there. You can kind of see it looks a little dirty on there. So I'm going to try to wipe it up as best as I can so that this double-sided tape that I'm going to apply next has the best chance of sticking to it. All right, I think that's going to be as good as that's going to get. Now I'm going to try to apply this double-sided tape to all of the edges. No, don't stick to the paper. Ooh, that was a close one. Yeah, this could be catastrophic if I get double-sided tape on that thing. So, to protect it, I think what I'm going to do is cut a piece of paper out that'll just fit inside of that. That way, in case I do accidentally drop one of these in there, it will not stick to the label. Okay, I didn't even bother to cut this paper out. I just folded it. So I'm going to lay that down on the inside. Try to center it as best as I can. And then I'm going to take some of this tape, and so that it doesn't try to come out, I'm just going to tape it to the walls. There, that should be plenty. It's just to hold it in there so I don't accidentally do something stupid and get the label messed up. Okay, now I can continue with the double-sided tape operation. Okay, so that's all the double-sided tape applied. Now I've got a piece of plastic wrap. Alright, I'm going to try my best to stretch this out over the entirety of the lid and trying not to get like any gaps. Trying to avoid some tears as well. This side over here is not all that great, but I think as long as I can get it to like fully seat in there, I should be okay. Yeah, there we go. So that should be a nice protective barrier there for that entire upper area. And now that means that I feel a little more confident about, I'm going to just basically just pour some vinegar in here and try to slosh it around and clean up these corners. And I can hear some fizzing in there. So it's definitely doing something. Now I'm just going to take a brush and try to clean the inside of these corners. Underneath any little nooks and crannies and all that. You can see I can let this kind of like go in there like that. And get inside of that pocket. I'm just going to go to all of the sides. Do the same thing. Now, the fun part is going to be getting rid of all this fluid inside, because it's not like I can just pour it out. It's going to go inside of the wall in here, and then it's going to go inside of this handle part because that's hollow. So I think I'm just going to have to absorb it with a towel or something. And then I'm going to try to, I'm going to take it to the bathroom. It's not like I'm going to be able to do it here at the bench, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to try to pour some water in there and just like rinse out as much as the inside as possible. But actually, before I do all of that, I think I am going to do what I said and try to like get in underneath. Maybe try to like scrub it a little bit with this like folded over paper towel. Maybe that'll help a bit. And after giving it a rinse out and wiping it off with the rag, that's what it looks like. It's looking pretty good. Now, however, because I did put water in here, there's lots of areas that I'm not going to be able to get in there to, like wipe them down. So there is going to be a little bit of moisture in there. So what I'm going to do is actually going to put this in a warm spot and just try to let as much of the moisture evaporate from inside of it as possible. And by the time we take care of the electronic portion of it, hopefully this should be fairly dry. And I did not get anything inside of that pocket there where the label is. So that's all looking pretty good. So it definitely helped to put this piece of plastic wrap over that area there to cover it up. So I'll move this aside for now and we'll start getting on the internals. With the exception of the analog movement, it looks like everything else may be able to be removed from the front, like the fasteners, like these screws. And then these the switches and the potentiometer, they're going to have nuts in there. If I remove these nuts back here from the analog meter, it looks like I should be able to remove it from the front, and then everything else can stay intact, so I don't have to like desolder any of the wires, including the battery holder. It just has like 4 screws and some nuts right there that hold it in from that side. So looks like everything should be able to come apart with like minimal desoldering. So let's start by removing these nuts off of the back of this. And just so I don't lose things, I am going to replace them. So with those 2 removed, I can now remove the 4 nuts on the corners. And they also have some split washers on them, so make sure make sure that I have everything once I remove them. That one's at a bit of an angle there, so I think I'm going to have to undo the battery holder first. All right, there we go. Got that out of the way. And that's going to need some cleaning on the back as well, but it's only on the plastic. It doesn't appear to have gotten on the inside, or has it? I think maybe I'll clean this externally first so I don't get a bunch of debris and stuff on the inside. So yeah, I'll just set that aside for now. Looks like it's eating through the paint, so that's going to be kind of tricky there. I don't know how it's causing the paint to detach from the plate. So I guess I'll just have to see how well of a job I can do on that. And all of these knobs, it appears that they're just like pressure fit on there, so they come right out. I think the ones that I will have to definitely desolder are these 3 wires, this white, this green, and this red one, that go to this cable that goes out through that grommet, because there's no way that I'm going to be able to pull this through there or bring anything else out through there. So yeah, those 3 are going to have to come off. And there we go. So that's this cable out. And now I just got to get the rest of this stuff off this plate. Okay, and this is the last nut right here. This should release everything. And there it goes. So it's like an entire little module there. So while a lot of this stuff on the surface, I am going to be able to just sort of like wipe off, the front is a bit of a different story, because as you can see right here, as I rub on this, it's bringing the paint up along with it. So this is extremely fragile, and I don't know if there's going to be any way that I can fully clean it without removing some of that text. Yeah, you can see right here how it's just completely getting eaten away. That's bad. I think the best thing to do in this scenario would be just to completely strip this plate of all the paint and everything, and like completely remake all of the text, maybe like as a sort of like a little decal right there, maybe like a transparent decal, which would require having to maybe scan this or take like a really good picture of it. Yeah, because there's just no way that I'm going to be able to get this completely cleaned up. As far as all the electrical stuff here goes, right there we can see that we've got blue stuff on all these contacts, but that doesn't appear to be a corrosion or anything. It looks like they applied something to those terminals, with the exception of that right there. That's definitely a little bit of corrosion, but that's not too bad. So I think instead of taking all of this apart, what I can just do is maybe remove this potentiometer so I can give that a pretty good cleaning, since it's all sort of like enclosed. But everything else I should be able to just like clean externally. You can see right there that these contacts, they're easily accessible. So if I just put like some contact cleaner there, I can just sort of like work this around and have it get clean. I could go in there with a brush, like a stiff brush, and then just kind of give that a bit of a cleaning back here as well. I think there are some, on the insides, like all that's readily accessible. So that should be fine if I just kind of give it an external cleaning. The switches, I can also just kind of go in there on the side, maybe spray some contact cleaner in there, and then just kind of work them back and forth. There is one potentiometer right there. I can also just spray some contact cleaner on that one and work it back and forth. I'm pretty sure the assembly manual will probably tell how to adjust that. The only thing I will remove from this is the battery terminals, especially that one right there. I'm going to undo both of them, actually, and then I'll just take the whole entire battery holder and just give it a really good cleaning. Oh man, this thing was like completely corroded through. I barely even like moved it, and it just completely fell apart. But I didn't have the video rolling when that happened, so yeah. Yes, I've got to figure out what I can do about this. But I ended up just snipping the wire because it's so corroded in there. I could not get it to like melt. So I'm just going to snip that little part off and then see how I can fix this. Ooh, that's cleaning up pretty nicely. One thing that drives me nuts about this can is that after I'm done using it, it'll just sit there and sputter out for a while. And I'm pretty sure, it's losing fluid, as you can tell. It's like just kind of spilling out, and it's losing pressure as it does so. So it's really annoying. And you can see that I've got a ton of it like right here on this paper towel, but I don't know why it does that, but it sucks. So this potentiometer, I am going to dismantle just so I can get in there and give the shaft and the balls a good cleaning. And they do have like some stuff on them, so I do want to get those as clean as possible. So I'm going to just gently pull up on these tabs until they release, and then I can pull the entire this front assembly here off, and that should be enough. Pull this off. Ah, they're coming off the bottom. Caught them. So that doesn't look too bad, but I will give it a good. Wow, jeez, almost lost it. I will give it a good wipe down. It's like there is a little bit of crusty stuff in there that will need to be cleaned. I'm going to set these balls down before I drop them. And that's what's inside the rest of it. Yep, looks like there's some stuff in there that may need some cleaning. That's not too bad overall. I thought it was going to be a little worse, but yeah, we'll get this all nice and cleaned up. Okay, so I got all these parts cleaned up, and I just used some of the same contact cleaner to give everything a good wipe down. And there doesn't appear to be like a whole ton of lubrication or anything inside of here, so I think that the little bit of film that the contact cleaner itself will leave on there should be more than enough. I mean, we don't want there to be like a whole lot of grease or anything right here in between this shaft, because otherwise the balls are just going to be kind of like around it like that, and the shaft is just going to kind of slip around the balls like that, and we don't really want that. We want it to have like a good amount of grip and not like a whole lot of slippage, but we also don't want to like, not have like any lubrication at all, I don't think. So this assembly pretty much just like cups all the balls inside of it, and then the shaft just kind of pokes in through the bottom. So I need to try to reassemble this by popping it back into this back can, and that kind of retains them so that they don't fall out. And already seeming to have a hard time. Like this. And this is all sorts of fiddly to put back together. And this little piece of plastic, I had to rewatch to see where it came from. It's basically underneath this center piece, so it just goes inside of it. There we go. It just kind of falls in place once it's all lined up. And I got to put these back in because they all fell out. All right, and before I fold down those tabs, just make sure that this is working as intended. So yeah, that's working fine. And the last one. Okay, make sure everything's like nice and seated down, and it looks like everything is good there. So yep, that's right there's where it stops. And even after it stops, you can sort of like still rotate this a little bit, but it's not going to go anywhere. So then once you start going in the opposite direction, then you can see that they'll start turning again until it gets to the end, and then that's where it stops again. So I think this is going to work out pretty well. I will check the resistance of it, make sure that it's all like pretty linear or whatever, but overall it seems to be pretty good. So I think I'm happy with that. And after cleaning everything with the contact cleaner and just getting all the dust and everything that I could out of everything, I went through with the multimeter and I checked all the contacts on all the switches. I've checked the potentiometers, and everything seems to check out. All the resistors that are, you can see here, like point to point, those are all measured of their written values. This little diode appears to check out. I didn't check the capacitor yet. I'll check it here in a second. But, I mean, everything looks fine. And like I said, this is like a really low voltage device. So it's not like there's crazy amounts of power running through any of this stuff. So everything appears to be in pretty good shape. So far, electrically, it should be okay. And I just checked. The capacitor does check out as well. It's supposed to be a 0.005 microfarad capacitor. Yep, it's pretty much spot on, so that's good. The meter's cleaning up pretty well, but I'm trying to clean up as much as I can externally before I remove the cover so I can get that stuff that sort of like seeped in there. But other than that, it's kind of pretty uneventful, to be honest. So I'll just try to clean off as much of the stuff as I can around the threads of these little mounting posts, and then I'll get that out of there. And I mean, that should be it. I really doubt that there's going to be any problems with this. It looks like it's in pretty good shape internally. Well, that cleaned up extremely well. You can't even really tell that there was anything ever really wrong with it. This is where the majority of the gunk was. There's like nothing on it now. So I'm wondering if these standoffs are maybe like stainless steel, because they really didn't take like any damage or anything. I still got a little bit of staining on that one right there, but it's really not bad. Looks like it was still just kind of superficial. It came right off. I really don't know what to do about this thing. As you can see here, just trying to rub it off with this the brush, just trying to remove like some of this debris is causing paint to come off. So it's leaving kind of like little streak marks. It's kind of hard to see there on camera. Right there, you can kind of see it. So I'm definitely not going to be able to clean this up without doing damage. So I really don't know what to do about it. I'm open to suggestions if anybody has any suggestions on how to go about fixing this. But like I said, I think the best thing to do would be just to completely strip it bare and have some sort of a kind of like an overlay, a decal made. But other than that, I mean, I can't do anything to clean it up and put it back together and still have it keep the majority of this text intact. I was trying to come up with a way of how to repair this D-size battery holder, and it'd be easy to just get a modern battery holder and just, completely replace it. I would like to keep the original if possible, and so this is what I came up with. So basically, the piece that's on the inside is riveted to this terminal on the outside, and so that piece that sticks out of the back there is basically part of the tube, and it's just been crimped so that it kind of rolls over and out, and that's how it keeps the terminal in place there. In between is a kind of like a paper gasket. It's like a very dense paper gasket, as well as behind the terminal that goes to the battery. So after removing the parts and cleaning them, I've got the battery terminal. You can see it. And then I've got the solder lug that goes on the back. And I also have cleaned up the piece of dense paper that fits between the terminal and the body of the battery holder. So just kind of slip that over once again like that. And on the kind of like the rear end of it, it has a sort of a little lip there that fits inside of that hole. So it acts kind of like an insulator, and it centers the terminal in there, as you can kind of see there. So if I can keep it there, and I can somehow put this other piece in the back and insulate it, this should be good, and I should be able to use it. So I was trying to think of a way to get this back on, because unfortunately what happened is, since it corroded on the back, it lost the little bit of material that was rolled over and crimped that held the solder lug in place. So after cleaning it up, and I actually tinned both of these parts using this liquid tin stuff, so that way they are not exposed, and it's going to be a little more difficult for them to corrode easily. I got a piece of like gasket paper. This stuff, it's pretty thick and it's kind of dense. So I actually cut out a piece of it from here. I used this punch to cut out a little round piece of it. And so after that, I took this punch that will punch about a 1/8 inch hole, which is almost exactly the diameter of that little center tube coming out of the terminal. So I punched it right in the center of that. So this is going to be my rear terminal, because the one that was there was like all like it just fell apart. So it wasn't going to be any good anymore. So I'm going to try to put this back into the main body of the holder, and I need something to hold this from the opposite side. And this hammer actually just happens to be like the right thickness there. So I guess I could have used the battery also, but I think this is going to work a little better. So I'm going to put that there so that holds it in place. I'm going to put this piece of gasket material onto there. And that's seeming like it's going to be a little too thick. Like I'm not going to have enough material there. Because my idea was I'll put the solder lug on the back, and then I'll take the center punch. And this is a type that is like spring loaded. So as you push it down, it kind of gets pushed in a little bit. And then there's like a little hammer inside that smacks it so that it's able to like make a dent. So I was going to put this onto a little tube right there. And I was going to try to see if I could maybe like punch out the little bit of material that's left on there outwards, and hopefully that'll be enough to just hold it. And then I was going to solder it after the fact. So I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it. Let's see, maybe if I can use these forceps to help me push the outsides like that. Bring this in. Oh, wow. That actually... yeah, that's holding. Definitely not a lot of material there, like I said. But it did go on the outside. You can see it right there. So now that that's in place, I think I can just solder the rest of it on, and that should be a fairly secure connection. I mean, it's not going to be like it was when it was brand new. But, I mean, it's better than nothing, and I can actually use this battery holder again. Actually, I've got a battery right here. So, I think that'll work. And since this gasket material should be able to handle the heat, it's not going to like melt or anything when I apply solder. I'm going to try to just get it all the way around where the battery terminal and the lug itself kind of interface. Okay, that should hopefully be a fairly secure connection. Cool, got another part done. As far as all the internal electronic stuff goes, I think everything is good to go. I've got everything cleaned up. I've made sure that everything's making proper contact and the potentiometers and everything is working properly. So all this stuff is good. And now for the part that I've been dreading, dealing with the plate. Now, unfortunately, I'm having to re-record this part because I totally didn't realize that I didn't have my microphone on. So I already kind of talked about what I was going to do, and I already sort of started doing some of it. But basically what I decided I'm going to do is, because the paint is really unstable in all these areas where the leakage kind of like affected it, I'm just going to strip those parts out. The parts where the leakage did not touch the paint, it's a lot more stable and like it's not, like rubbing off or anything. So that stuff is fine. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try to remove as much of the affected paint as I can for now, and just leave like the good stuff. Like right here, I've already like rubbed it with like a little piece of paper towel, like soaked with alcohol. So all of that stuff came off. The paint that's a lot more stable does not easily come off. So I'm just going to leave that on for now. Up here in the front, I'm just going to basically try to like just strip it up until like this point, so that when I put the meter back on, or the movement, it doesn't get a bunch of like residue and like stuff behind it. And I'm going to try to clean the rear here off as best as I can as well, so that like these corners don't leave a bunch of stuff in the fresh cleaned case. And as far as where the pots and the switches go, I'm going to clean them around the areas where the nuts and everything and the hardware like makes contact with the case, so that way it doesn't leave like residue and stuff on them, and it doesn't like further corrode anything. So I'm going to like clean up around there and there. And I'm just going to leave all of the text on for now. And eventually at some point, I'll see if maybe there's like a way I can scan this or something. And then that way I can maybe get something reprinted or whatever. I don't know yet. I've never actually tried to like take on something like this. So that's the plan. And like I said, I've already sort of started here. You can see right there, I've already removed a lot of that material. This paint is pretty stable, so that can stay on. And then there's like a few areas in here where it still needs to be removed. So I'll continue with that, and we'll see what it looks like. It's not going to be pretty. I already know that it's going to probably look kind of ugly. But, I mean, that's all I've got to work with for now. And I think this is as far as I'm going to be able to go safely without affecting all the stuff on this side. I tried to clean up around those like holes where all the hardware goes. On the inside, there's no more like grainy feeling residue. Everything feels smooth. So everything that's left over is paint that's like properly adhered. This corner was a little more affected. It's got a little bit of pitting, but it's not bad, and there's no more like sticky stuff on there anymore. So everything that's left, with the exception of this stuff over here, is no longer sticky. None of this is sticky. So I can reassemble it, and I guess we'll play around with it a bit. But for the time being, that's just how it's gonna have to be. I can't really do much about it. And there we are. Got the internals completely reassembled. I have all the wires soldered back into their proper spots. And the only wire that I did replace was one going from this point here down to the battery negative, because that one was pretty corroded, and I was going to see if I could maybe just like cut it back, but as you can see, corrosion went all up inside the jacket, so I thought, well, whatever, it's just a wire. So I replaced that with another piece of solid core wire, except the only difference is this one's got a blue jacket around it, so I didn't have any white stuff, so I just put that there. So everything in here should be ready to go, and we can actually put a brand new battery inside. March of 2024. Now, as I mentioned, this potentiometer down there is going to have to get adjusted. I don't know what it needs to be adjusted to just yet. I'm going to have to look at the manual, but as far as everything inside here goes, it should be good. Okay, so here on page 12, it says adjustments, and it's got the calibration procedure for that potentiometer. So it says to set the controls as follows: the beta calibration of full counterclockwise, polarity off, range X1, function switch beta, leakage control on the rear of function switch. So that's the one we're going to be adjusting. Full counterclockwise when viewed from the rear of the panel. Okay, so it says that the beta calibration, this one should be fully counterclockwise, so I'm just going to go until I feel it stop. There we go. It kind of, I mean, it doesn't completely stop because you can still kind of like go past it, but right there, that's fully counterclockwise. Polarity is off. It says range X1, so that's on X1. Function switch, beta, and then the leakage control, which is that potentiometer in the rear. It says fully counterclockwise, so all the way there. That's stopped. Now next, it says the meter needle should be on the extreme left mark on the scale as shown in figure 1. If the needle is not over this mark, slowly turn the mechanical adjust screw while lightly tapping the face of the meter with your finger to properly position the needle. So that's talking about this right here. So we just have to turn this little adjustment until that needle is right over that first mark. So I can see right there that it's definitely not. Pretty much right on right there. Pretty good to me. So I'm just going to leave it right there. Install the D cell. I already did that. So right here it just tells you what everything is. And then on page 13, which for some reason has like a totally different image quality, it's talking about putting the serial number and like little label inside of the case. We don't have that right now, but it says remove the black and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to skip that. It says connect the 180 ohm brown gray brown resistor between a collector, the red test lead, and the emitter, the white test lead. So I need a 180 ohm resistor. So let me dig one out. Oh, and look at that. I've got a pack here of 180 ohm, 2% resistors. So these will be perfect. And it says that we need to install it between the red and the white lead. I think we've got good contact there. Okay. Do not allow the meter to go off scale to the right. Remain this way for any length of time as this could damage the meter movement. Okay, so it says hold the function switch in the ICEO position. And then we're going to turn the polarity switch to the NPN position. And we're going to adjust that leakage until the meter indicates 5K full scale on the leakage scale of the meter. Okay, so we're going to turn this to the NPN position. Whoa. Okay, let's... All right, I think I'm going to leave it right there. It gets to a point where that potentiometer in the back, like it gets super fiddly when you get like right to about 5. You go just a tiny bit beyond that and it goes like way too far, and you go a little bit too much before that and it just like drops quite a bit. So that's as close as I can get it, and it honestly looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to leave it right there. So in the next step, it says turn the polarity switch to the off position, which I already did, and remove the 180 ohm resistor, which I already did. Tape the resistor to the back of the chassis or place it in the battery clip for further or future use. That's kind of a handy little tip, except that this one did not have one inside, so whoever built it didn't leave it in there. And this procedure will be used whenever recalibration is necessary. Always recalibrate the meter when a new battery has been installed. This completes the adjustments. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. And just for fun, let's test out a few transistors that I've got sitting here. There's this is an NTE-2329. I don't remember what this is a replacement of just yet. We've also got a 2SB655, and we've got a 2N2905A. So we'll see what kind of values we get for these transistors, and then we can look up the data sheets and see if we can, or see how close we got to what it's supposed to be. This little CAN one, I could pretty much just plug it into the socket right there, and this should be emitter base collector, I believe. So if I put it in this orientation, that should work. And it doesn't seem to want to go in, like it's stopped there. Yeah, that's not staying inside there. So the I don't know, I guess the contacts there aren't like spring loaded or something. So I'll just use the clips. Let's go ahead and run some tests. So this transistor is a PNP transistor, so I will turn this to PNP. And then the instructions here says, place the polarity switch in the PNP position and turn the beta cal control to bring the meter to the cal position. So, oh, that's for trying to determine if it's a PNP or an NPN. We know for sure that this is a PNP, so let's see. Press cal test switch to the test position. The meter will read directly in beta on the top scale of the meter. If the needle swings to the left beyond 50, set the range switch in the X10 position. Now, when the test switch is depressed, the meter reading must be multiplied by 10 to obtain the correct gain. Okay, so we're going to hit test. Oh, I messed up. So I guess first of all, I'm supposed to put this to NPN and turn this beta cal knob. Yeah, right there. Okay, now I've got it back on X1. I can hit the test button. And it still went below 50 in that direction. So let's go ahead and hit X10. And it goes up to about, what is that? It's at about 17. So times 10, that would be 170. So that was the beta test. And right here, it gives you some typical values depending on what type of transistors they are. And let's go and do a leakage test. So it says leakage tests must always be made with the transistor out of circuit, since the resistance in the circuit could cause erroneous readings. So I'm just going to read through this and then I'll explain how the process goes, because that way I don't keep messing up. Okay, so this one's easy. We just have to turn that center knob over to measure the collector to emitter leakage current, or the collector to base leakage current. So right here it gives some typical values again, depending on the type of transistor. So if we measure this one, we can see that the collector to emitter leakage current is pretty much 0. And then emitter to, or collector to base, that's also pretty much 0. Okay, so I'll run the same tests with these two other ones and see what sort of values I get. So I went through and I tested all these transistors, and I totally didn't realize it, but I kind of just grabbed them at random, and it turns out that all of these are PNP transistors. So I grabbed a 390 or a 2N3904 NPN just to test out the NPN functionality. And I mean, they're all good transistors, so they all test okay. Oh, and it turns out that I can stick a transistor there in the socket. It just has to be pushed in like really hard so that it'll engage in the contacts there, but that's pretty secure. And as we can see here, if I put it on PNP and let that get to its, yeah, it's calibrated right there. Push this down, it goes to about 17 again. So yeah, about 170. And I kind of wrote down the values that I measured and what the data sheets for these about particular like numbers, you know, kind of give a range of. So for this 2905A, I'm going to turn this off. It says the beta can range from, well, I mean, it's HFE on the data sheet, so it's like between 50 and 300. This one measured about 170, so I mean, it's fine. And then the leakage occurrence, the manual makes a mention of the collector to emitter leakage current is always going to be greater than the collector to base leakage current. So I totally didn't realize it, but when I was measuring them, the collector to emitter on all of them was just slightly above 0. Like it was just like a tiny little bit, like a hair above the 0 line. And then the collector base current, leakage current was like a lot closer to 0. So yeah, in all cases, it was just slightly above 0. And so that all seems to check out. For the 2SB655, we measured 95. The range was like between 60 to 200, so that's within range. For the NTE-2329, we got 100. typical about 55 to 160. And for the 2N3904, I measured 250, and it's got a range of between 100 and 300. And now that the case here has like fully dried, we can stick this back in here for now. And I did end up cleaning up this corner. It was still kind of sticky, and then I realized that it has to go underneath that sort of like little lip right there. So I didn't want to leave more gunk on that area, so I removed more of that material. So this should be able to just slip back inside right like that. And I'm just going to drop this in there for now. I'm just going to leave it in there. I'll probably find like a better way to secure it later on. So I'm just going to pop this in, or maybe I shouldn't do that. Reconsidering my choices in real time. I'm just going to tape it. There we go. That should be pretty secure. Okay, that side's in. And that side's in. There we go. Tuck the cables inside. And let's peel this off now. I still need to give the outside of the case a bit of a wipe down. And let's put a new piece of tape here with the new battery date. 3/24. So it's definitely not pretty, but I mean, it's what's on the inside that counts, I guess, or so I've heard. So I mean, it works. All right, and there we go. I gave the entirety of the outside a good wipe down. I cleaned up all the little dirt that was like accumulated in all these, or like this textured outside. And so it externally doesn't look too bad. And I mean, other than like that stuff right there, some of the other stuff isn't as noticeable unless you're like looking down for it. But that's where we're going to have to leave this one for now. So if you made it to the end, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys around the bench.